Bowl eligibility is not necessarily good enough for this program, but for this particular season, it's the latest accomplishment, and it means more reps for the young players, a look toward 2022, and of course, a national spotlight for at least one night. Talking Miami football at 6-5, taking on Duke in the finale of the regular season for 2021. We got Cam Underwood on the line, as we always do here on Wednesday night, 7 o'clock Eastern time, to talk up the Canes. Hey, Cam.
Hey, Mark. Hey, guys. Everything going. Usually you ask me, but I'm good. Can't complain. Obviously just here to hang out. Holiday tomorrow, so let me get that out of the way. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. And in the way, because, in the world of blogging, sometimes we'll be like, oh, we're all going to say the same thing or but I'm thankful for our readers and listeners, honestly, because, it gives us gives me the opportunity to do this. If nobody listened, if nobody watched, if nobody read, if nobody interacted with anything, wouldn't be able to be here and do this. And, I enjoy it, on here. I enjoy it on State of View, obviously. So come on over and fan with us over there and connect with us in all those ways. But yeah, no, really appreciative of you guys. Thankful for the, the platform, the opportunity. And, we're going to have a party for an hour or whatever, but I just want to get that out of the way up front. So for everybody who, always watches and likes and hops in the comments and the chat and the super chats and everything, and also comments on, on State of the U and all these other things that, to support myself and then also Mark. Honestly and truly, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for taking the lead on that. Those are my sentiments exactly. From time to time, I will remind all of you that you make this ultimately work. I could be sitting here, Cam and I could be sitting here having a conversation in front of no one. So we appreciate your contributions. We appreciate your engagement in the live chat, your comments, your questions, hitting the like button, and just being here and your presence. Because I was doing the same thing when I had 50 subs, the same as 31,000 subs. So same deal, but the difference is you people are watching and engaging in the content. So again, to reiterate what Cam said, thank you so much for that. And on this Thanksgiving weekend, we give thanks to all of you. All right. Miami is 6-5 following a game in which, based on my perception, they controlled the game. Not that it wasn't in doubt when it got a little snug at 31-26, but they were the better team. Certainly did not steal the game in any such way. Led most of the way, and again, put the foot down there late to secure the win at 38-26 against Virginia Tech. Again, 6-5 now for the Canes and bowl eligible. So what stood out to you on both sides of the ball?
The offense obviously stood out. We're just continuing to get better on offense, and it's not perfect. It's not perfect. In terms of execution, in terms of play calling, there's still, that 4th and 1 inside zone, thing where that spot was a gift to pick up a 4th down near midfield during that game, but that is a thing that will happen, obviously. Sorry, hold on. Excuse me. I apologize. But that stood out to me in a bad way because against Florida State, Miami did not convert, and in a short yardage situation, and it was clearly stated by Rhett Lashley that going into last week's game, there was going to be an intentional plan, and you're going to see what that plan is to convert in short yardage. And then we do the same thing that we've been doing every year and barely, by the grace of the gift of a bad spot by the referees, pick it up. That's not an intentional plan, to do the same thing and then just hope that they call it the way that goes your favor. Tyler Van Dyke, ACC Rookie of the Week for the 4th time in 5 weeks. He's the first ACC quarterback in 15 years to have 5 consecutive 300-yard and 3 touchdown games in a row. I believe was the stat, or one of very few at the bare minimum with those statistics. And he continues to prove that, with every passing week that he's the real deal. And we schemed some things up for him. That last touchdown to Mike Harley, on senior night for his 5th year here. You run shotgun and give him a 7-step drop from Shoddy that lets me know that you're trying to let that thing fly and run an over route with Harley at the 2, number 2 receiver. So 1 being in the boundary, you count towards the towards the formation. So he's the number 2 receiver, and there was like a safety kind of over top, and he kind of flipped his hips a little bit, but he was playing zone, and then they basically gave it in a almost kind of Tampa 2 scenario where you had the linebacker trying to cover him or carry him up the seam, and that wasn't going to work. And the linebacker's good, but just in space with Mike Harley, come on, bro. So Tyler Van Dyke, hits that on the money, hits other throws on the money. It was that was good to see. The offensive line, for the most part, was really good in terms of pass protection. Obviously, the run blocking wasn't great, because you can never call your run blocking great when you're running for 30 carries for 54 yards at 1.8 yards per carry. Excuse me. Even if you take away the kneel downs at the end, that's 26 carries for 67 yards. So 67 divided by 26, real quick, is 2.58 yards per carry. So even without the kneel downs taken in there, that's still really quite atrocious. And I think that we also saw that you cannot necessarily lean on Jalen Knighton for 20 and 30 carries, which we did in one game, sure. But we have bigger backs. Give it to Cody Brown, give it to Thaddeus Franklin, who finally apparently is practicing like a player who wants to be on the field. And then, we went to him to kind of close the game out. But, you see that and everything. James Williams did not play. I believe the report was that he's going to have season-ending surgery. I believe it's on a groin muscle that seemed like he was pointing to from the Florida State game and everything. So, you get more run for Avante Williams, but not until you put Amari Carter back to start at safety because it's senior night. Which is frustrating. But, hey, it is what it is. But, there were things to like, there were things not to like. And honestly, we were getting out-coached by a team without a coach for a long part of that game, which was really bad. And especially when Virginia Tech went to an onside kick to steal a possession and then got it, which is what helped lead them to be in the close proximity and score that Mark had mentioned before. There was no reason this game should have ever been close. So when it gets to a point in the 3rd and 4th quarter where it was close, what are we talking about? And you should have been prepared, because Miami's boat racing them to begin with. So you need to continue to do that. But also, the Virginia Tech interim coach, who went to Virginia Tech and apparently loves Virginia Tech, doesn't love them enough to be adventurous with his calls, because you would have expected more trick plays, more fake punt. Look, everybody remembers the fat punter from Georgia Tech. What is his name? The Harvin dude who dined up DJ Ivy last year. I would have expected them to do something like that. And eventually he finally did, just say balls to the wall. Here, let's go. But I honestly thought he played it pretty conservative. And with literally nothing to lose, I would have been even more aggressive than he was in terms of some punt or go for it decisions, just in general aggression of what he, called or had the team do. And I think that obviously played into Miami's favor, because, I don't know if we would have been prepared or able to stop them had they been more aggressive in some of these ways. So those are just some of the things that stood out to me. And we actually got some good returns also, punt and kick returns for the first time in forever. And Miami's been abjectly terrible in that pursuit for a long time, which is sad to say for a program that has developed previously, the greatest return man of all time in Devin Hester. But outside of the kicker and the punter, it's been a real moribund situation on special teams, for Miami. But there was a little glimmer of hope that maybe if we start stringing some things together and settle some other things with the kind of returns that we saw, that can be hopefully a building block going forward. But, we'll see.
two statistics that jump out of this box score offensively, and they're becoming routine jumping out of the box score each week, is that Tyler Van Dyke is throwing for about 350 every game with 3 or 4 touchdowns, and that Charleston Rambo is catching 8 or 10, 11 passes for $150 or $160, as he did on Saturday. On the negative side, what stands out to me, and in catching most of the game, I don't have a real read on what the issue was here, but you mentioned Jalen Knighton, 14 carries for 17 yards. So the weather was atrocious for much of the game. So there could have been some slips in there and him not being able to get some good traction.
That was more in the return game. That wasn't really even in the run game. There was just no room in the run game.
So that was going to be my question. How much of that was him? How much of that was play calling? How much of that was just flat out offensive line not moving people?
Yeah, I would say between those things, it wasn't the environmental. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to, like, it was a couple times I remember specifically, like, well, he did have one run when he slipped, trying to cut off his inside foot, not his outside foot in the rain. And yeah, obviously, it's just straight ergonomics at that point. If you're going one way, the outside foot is the one you have to use, So if I'm going to the left, left foot is the one I stick in the ground, and then it'll get me north and south. If I try to go on my right foot on the inside, you're going to lose the leverage because it's slippery. You're going to fall. He did that once, maybe twice. Well, I really only remember it the one time, but yeah, it was just ineffective and ineffectual run game in its totality. So that was clearly the plan from Virginia Tech to be able to try to make Miami one-dimensional. But when your one dimension has Tyler Van Dyke throwing to Charleston Rambo and a host of others, it's pretty darn good. Shout out to Charleston Rambo going over 1,000 yards. He's only the 5th wide receiver in program history to do that. He's on pace to set the single season receiving yardage record. In the next game or two here, he's been a monster since he came over from Oklahoma, and people are saying, before the season, is it, why did he leave Oklahoma, and does he have any kind of talent, and is this a situation that's going to be better for him? And regardless of the success of the team overall, the individual decision for him to come to Miami and elevate his skills and his stock to move forward towards pro football has unequivocally been incredible for him. 7 catches for 116 this week, no touchdowns. There was one that could have been a touchdown. I think Tyler missed that throw. And that was a theme a little bit, even with putting up 38 points. 19 for 33, 58% completions. That's actually really low for him. So there were more yardage. There was more yardage and touchdowns out there to be had. Even with 357 yards and 3 touchdowns and no interceptions, it could have been more. And including, going towards Rambo. I don't forget if it was Rambo or Harley, but somebody dropped a ball and they had nothing but green grass in front of them. It might have been both of them, honestly. But yeah, so Virginia Tech did want to make us one-dimensional, and they did, and that one dimension was still good enough to win the game.
And Rambo playing the position he does, wide receivers are dependent more so than any other position on the field, has to be thankful that Tyler Van Dyke has turned out to be the quarterback that he has, because he has really taken off, meaning Rambo, since Van Dyke took over quarterback. His numbers week to week, especially since Van Dyke took over, are stellar.
Yeah, he came out earlier in the year, Rambo did, and said 120 yards per game is below the standard for his performance. Because he had that, it was in a loss. It might have been the Michigan State game. And I just remember after the game, he was just like, I got to come harder than that. I'm like, word? Because that's a monumental day still. He was like, no, that's where I am with it. 120 and a touchdown, that's not good enough at all. It's substandard. I got to get in the gym. I got to get in the lab. I got to do better because I have to raise my level of play because I'm letting my teammates down by only having that level of production. Now, bear in mind, he's had 160. Let me give you hold on. I like to look the stats up as I'm saying this because I know that there's been multiple games that he's had that have been more than that. Give me 2 seconds. Click that.
Yeah, I've got his
Click
last
that.
5 here.
Yeah, it was 12 for 156 against Michigan State. And then I think it was 5 for 99 against Virginia when he said that. So he didn't do much against North Carolina, but then 127 and 2 against NC State, 101 on 7 against Pittsburgh, 210, second all time on 7 catches against Georgia Tech, 95 against Florida State, then 116. So, I mean, he's had 3 games this year over 120, but I mean, it's just, he's really just had that kind of performance where, and you've seen it where it's been Tyler to Charleston has innovated the Miami offense in so many different ways and so many different times. And he's, like I said, he's already over 1,000 yards. He's clearly on pace to have the single greatest receiving season in terms of yardage in Miami Hurricanes history. He's another success story from the portal. I know everybody has not worked out, but at the top of the portal with like the number 1 guys who've started on one side of the ball or another, those guys have been pretty good. And Charleston Rambo is up there with the best of them.
Miami wins to move on to 6-5. They've got Duke this week, and I checked out the point spread, and that is the largest point spread that I've seen Miami against a Power 5 team in quite some time. I believe they're a full 3-touchdown favorite against Duke. They should win that game to close it out at 7-5 and look for a bowl bid after that. Kim, I'm going to go to this question in the live chat because it deals with AD and coach, and I don't even know if it's a legitimate question because I don't know the fan base that well, even though we get a ton of feedback here. I'm not going to pretend to be this engaged to the Miami fan base. And of course, when people generalize what the fan base is thinking, feeling, let's understand we're generalizing millions of people for a program like Miami. So not everyone's delusional, not everyone's anything. Everyone's their own individual, but collectively, whether this is a portion of the fan base here that says, according to Casey, that what do you think about Miami fans, having unrealistic expectations about bringing in Lane Kiffin as head coach, and which to me, we'll let you take it on from there. Sark as an offensive coordinator, well, just knowing obviously his employment status, that would be ridiculous for anyone to be thinking in that direction.
Yeah, I don't think that it's unrealistic at all. The expectation that Miami go get a proven coach. If you've been reading any of the reports out there about the AD search and the potential coaching search, because even as we sit here now on Thanksgiving Eve, the Miami coaching job is occupied by, Manny Diaz. I don't believe that that's going to continue to be the case, but currently it is. I don't think that it's unrealistic at all. There's been lots of talk that Miami has money to spend and, towards getting a proven coach and a coaching staff that would support that individual to the standard of excellence that, they desire, so no real budget coaches, like going out and paying people, to build a proper staff. The money's there. That's been reported multiple times. And I've been trying to tell you all that for years. Just because Miami has chosen not to spend that money does not mean that the money does not exist. You know what I mean? So there's that. And keeping things the same is going to give you the same result. So things need to change to improve the result. And it's really incumbent upon the power brokers of Miami to make the right choice in terms of athletic director, whether that be Tom Jurich, who apparently is the clubhouse leader right now, former Louisville AD, lives in Tampa, really would like this job. From all reports, whether they go in a different direction than Mr. Jurich. We've talked about John Square, who's an associate AD, former defensive end at Miami, played. He was on the 2001 team, but he was a freshman redshirt, I believe. Because, I want to say John Square was a year after me in school. But he's a guy who has administration experience. JP wrote about Mac Rhodes from Baylor. As one, Brian White from FAU, it has been mentioned before. So I don't think that it's crazy to go and get the kind of leader that you want to have in terms of athletic director, and then the athletic director making the choice to bring in somebody with a name, and Mario Cristobal is completely in play. I know that people want to say that he would never leave Oregon, but y'all said that about so many coaches. Chip left Oregon. You figured he was going to be there forever. Okay, it was the NFL. Yeah, okay, fine. Willie Taggart left Oregon. That was supposed to be a career job for him, right? He left. Well, he's from Bradenton, and he's a Florida State fan. Yeah. But if you have that program and you try to say that like it is unassailable in all these different kind of ways, and you cannot get a coach up off of that job, that's been proven verifiably false. So you have that. Lane Kiffin completely in play, on board. Not saying that, we're going to get one or the other, but it's entirely possible. And I don't think that it's unrealistic to do that. And again, you have the advantages built into playing an ACC Coastal are there. If Lane's looking to win in the big kind of a way, right? The ceiling there has to be 10-2. You know what I mean? You got to go. I mean, Jimbo is bossing up in recruiting. You got Alabama, LSU. I know that they're down, but like that's the school in that state, and they never miss on those guys. They got more talent than you can shake a stick at. A&M is going up. I haven't even mentioned Alabama. Auburn is in there. You got Texas coming in and Oklahoma to compete with as well.
Everybody's good in the entire division.
The worst in the entire SEC West. Even
Mississippi State or Arkansas are the worst teams in their top 25 teams.
Exactly. So like, I mean, you have the cycle now where like LSU is down a little bit, but like you could make the case.
Yeah.
But like that's the one. But you're usually going to have, 6 of those teams be ranked teams every year, including Ole Miss with Lane. But like you have all of that, and then you have Miami and Carolina probably, and not much else in this division. You know what I mean? Like there is a clear path forward. There's a clear path towards some real accolades, some real top level performance for any coach that were to come here. Not even to mention with Lane and Mario specifically, because those are the two at the top. We all know them to be tireless and very good recruiters. Now you put them here wearing this logo. I don't know if you see it, but there we go. Wearing the U logo when they go into somebody's house. It matters. It does. So it's not crazy for the fans to have the expectation that the administration does what needs to be done. Not trying to find the next, 500 coach that's going to take that you have the crystal ball, that you're taking the leap with them. There's no Jimmy Johnsons out there, who are 25, 23-3 coming from Oklahoma State. Then they come down here, and then when they come to Coral Gables, that is the thing that just transforms them into this Hall of Fame coach. Miami's tried that route. It's not working. And it's really hard because it's the same thing like with recruiting, where you cannot build your roster out of 3 stars and hope that everybody has the transformational development process of a David Njoku or a Gregory Rousseau. It's not going to happen. Not widespread. Now, it can happen in individual instances, but it's not going to happen consistently. We've seen that in terms of the coaching prospects or the coaching, the head coaches at Miami as well. So, no, it's not unexpected or unreasonable for Miami and the fans to have the expectation that we get in a competent, high-level athletic administrator in terms of the AD, bring in somebody. I mean, Alonzo Highsmith has been an NFL executive for 10, 15 years and is openly talked about coming back to Miami to take over the director of football operations role, basically between the AD and the head coach, and then to help drive the program forward in that way. That's a thing that can clearly happen. Barry Jackson just wrote about that that's a thing that he was prepared to do, but apparently Blake James didn't have the foresight and said that he would do some very low-level cosmetic things to improve the program when asked what he would do. And was like, oh, no, give me a real answer. It's like, no, that's the real answer. It's like, so lipstick on a pig and that's going to change everything? Really? Okay. But it's not unreasonable for Miami to expect that you get a top-level AD, you go and get a proven coach, not an up-and-coming coach, not a, 1 year on the job or 13 days like Manny coming from Temple. And then I know Manny means well, and he's a great person, and it's foul, and that's debatable, whatever. I have no problem with him as a person, but he doesn't have the reps behind him. He doesn't have the experience to run this kind of a program. And that is what needs to change. And we've seen that clearly. The one time that Miami's gotten a proven coach was Mark Richt, and he was on the downslope of his career, and he still came in and won 9 games and 10 games back to back, had us number 2 in the country, 60 minutes of football away from the college football, pretty much away from the college football playoff, because you have an undefeated team going up against Clemson in the ACC championship game. You have a close game there. It was reasonable to think like you're pretty on the cusp there. And that's the one coach that Miami's gotten who's been proven. The one. And he was on the downslope. Think what you could do with somebody who's in the middle of their career and potentially still at that level or improving their performance as a coach. That is the expectation, and it is not unreasonable. If it does not come to fruition, that is one thing, but it's not unreasonable for us to have that expectation right now.
Yeah, I've stated this in various different types of ways. I would have guessed, I would have estimated we would be sitting here in 2021 with Mark Richt as the coach if we were having this conversation 4 years ago. But yeah, I think maybe now we know a little bit more about his situation personally and health-wise. Maybe that contributed to some of that as well, unfortunately. So you can add a third coach to this evaluation. But people are bringing up, of course, Mario Cristobal and Lane Kiffin. So let's start with those two. And if you've got a third that you would like to evaluate, I want you to make a choice. If you had a choice between those two or a third that you think is viable, that is a reasonable candidate, and then I will let you know why I would choose the one that I would out of at least those two.
Well, I mean, we're going to start with Mario, right? He was a Cuban-American immigrant. Well, his parents immigrated from Cuba. He's Cuban-American from Miami. Went to Christopher Columbus Catholic School. Played at the University of Miami. Was an offensive lineman on 2 national championship teams. Coached at the University of Miami at 2 different times. Has coached all over the country. He's at FIU, and then Pete Garcia ran him out of town because Pete Garcia is a terrible administrator. That's verifiably true. He's been an assistant in multiple places. He's now the head coach at Oregon, as you know. And I fully believe that he would come and take this job. Honestly and truly. And from everything that, has been reported, everything that's the chatter around and everything, it's very, very plausible that he would undertake this challenge. And understanding that it is a challenge, and understanding that you're not taking a lateral move in terms of immediate performance from the team that he's coaching right now to the team that he would be coming to coach. They're already at 10 wins. They were in the conversation for the college football playoff. Miami obviously not, but it's not crazy. It's not. And if you think that it is, then we just disagree. And that's fine. I'm not going to call you names or anything, but we can freely disagree, and we do. Obviously, if you think that it's outside the realm of possibility that Mario would leave Oregon. And again, I've already said that, coaches have left Oregon before, with Oregon being what Oregon is. So, it's hard to say that it's not possible when in this very scenario, it has already happened. But he's proven that he can build a program from scratch at FIU. He's proven that he is a very valuable recruiter. He's proven that he understands the offensive side of the ball from a physical standpoint, obviously, because he's an offensive line coach and offensive lineman previously. So he has that kind of mentality with it, and then has moved up to a name brand program and really done well with them. So there's that. There's been some gaps there. If they had a better quarterback, they would be very much better than they are. They're definitely struggling in that pursuit, but everybody's always looking for quarterbacks. Duh. This is why you always recruit one every year, because hey, it's a thing that happens, right? But the defense usually plays well for them. Obviously, against Utah, they did kind of get their doors blown off on the road there, but usually a solid team, usually a well-coached team, and they embody his mentality. And that is really key. Additionally, like I said, in terms of recruiting, he's really making it hard for everybody on the West Coast, because that is the destination. You go down to California, you get like a Kayvon Thibodeau, you get all these guys to go up there. Even a couple transfers that other teams wanted. He's really made it a destination thing because of the power of his personality and what he does in terms of recruiting. So there's that. Lane Kiffin, it's been reported too much that he wants this job for me to believe that he doesn't actually want this job. And Ole Miss is one of the most senior-laden teams in the country. They're losing Matt Corral to the draft, which they've already said, which is the quarterback, that's helping them to this incredible success. Lane still has his house in Boca from when he coached FAU, and loves Florida, like the state of. And I've heard it from multiple Power 5 assistants, and a lot of this is, I've heard for years, okay, back from when I worked in high school. I worked at Miramar High School, which was, a destination program for major programs recruiting. So I got to meet a lot of coaches in the world of college football whose names you would know. And I can think of two very specific individuals with very close proximity to the situation who would know, saying, oh, yeah, no, he loves and would love to take over Miami. I'm talking about Lane Kiffin. And this is years ago. He's proven that he can win at FAU, right? So he got them into winning. He's gone to Ole Miss, which is not an easy situation necessarily, but he's proven that he can win. He's a great recruiter. He has grown up. He'll still be Lane, but I mean, he's not the 28-year-old, 31-year-old impetuous kid that he was, that got run off with some jobs and didn't have the success in those jobs that he and the institution or pro team would have wanted. But he could always coach his ass off. He ain't get those jobs just because. And I know that he's a son of a legendary defensive coach and everything, but he ain't get those jobs on the strength of his last name. He got those jobs on the strength of his personality. In fact, he can coach his ass off. Let that be known very clearly. Now, do you think maybe he wouldn't be long for this job, that he's trying to get back to the NFL, or, use Miami as a major stepping stone towards who knows what job, or something like that? That's a concern. And we had, have there been breakdowns with his teams? That's a concern. But I don't think there's anything disqualifying. And I wrote it in 2015 that I think that Miami should have hired Lane Kiffin then when we hired Mark Richt. Hashtag Let's Be Jerks. You already know the originator of the movement. But apart from that, there's been an additional 6 or 7 years worth of evidence of growth from Kiffin from that point to now. So while he had a very good argument to be the coach then, I think that argument has only been emboldened between then and now. So I think that you have two very, very good candidates there, and obviously Lane with offense. Like, come on. I mean, you bring in somebody to help run the defense and everything. And Ole Miss's defense has been good at times. They're doing the land shark thing and whatnot. And, it's not been great always, but, it's not been abjectly terrible, which we've seen from some of his previous defenses previously in his career, Tennessee, USC, Raiders, things like that. But, he also went to the Nick Saban School for Wayward Coaches. Both of them did, actually. and were assistants there before moving on to other jobs. And, win a couple championships under Saban, you learn the process from him and go and then put that on the ground on FAU and then go over to Ole Miss. There's things to like with both Mario and with Lane. I'm seeing J Love T saying Tom Herman should be the third choice, hands down. If you want to go that way, that's a guy who had a rising star by his name. He's coached at two of the largest brands in the world of college football. Well, yeah, because he was the assistant at O State, the O coordinator. He went down to Houston and won. Then he went to the University of Texas and did not have the success that he wanted there. But that's another guy who has a big personality. That's a name. He has had some success. It was not all the success that you want at 100 or at Texas, but when he was at Houston, they were Teflon there. Like they weren't even Teflon. They were juggernauts. Those were some monster teams there in the Group of Five world, and they're even beating some Power Five teams and things like that. That's a guy with pedigree. That's a guy with fire. That's a guy with passion. That's a guy with demonstrated coaching excellence. Again, at some of the biggest jobs that you can get in the sport.
They wiped out a top 10 Florida State team in the Peach Bowl.
Hello, you know what I mean? But again, the buy-in at Texas, and I think that Texas is its own thing, clearly. But the buy-in at Texas, the defense at Texas wasn't where it needed to be. It didn't fully curl over like it did at Houston. And you can talk about maybe some things behind the scene, but all three of those guys, if you want to put that in, and thank you for that contribution, J Love T, were all three are reasonable candidates. While I understand for a variety of reasons, because Miami is in Miami and the connections to people in Miami, that Mario Cristobal is the number one candidate pretty much across the board. Let's be jerks, bro. I wrote about it in 2015, and y'all thought I was playing. Go back and read that piece, because I have. Y'all thought I was joking. Absolutely and totally not. I'm not, and I just think that I think the marriage of of Lane Kiffin and the University of Miami is a match made in heaven. I always have for the last 6 years. I really, truly believe that. I think that he's proven that he's ready for a spotlight major job again. And Ole Miss is a good job. It's not the greatest job. It's not a Miami job. It's not. But I think that he's shown and proved from his time at FAU, turning them around from what they were to set them on the path to being what they are now, which is consistently 9+ wins, right? For laying that foundation, again, after being in the Nick Saban school for wayward coaches. Then you go to Ole Miss and do what you're doing there as well, and even leveraging some guys from South Florida. Shout out to Elijah Moore from St. Thomas Aquinas, and everything. That's the guy that I want personally. But I understand that he's probably running a solid second to Mario in terms of the pecking order at present.
Why in 2021 is Ole Miss not as good a job as Miami?
I think that first of all, I think that the ceiling is not the same. I think that you're pretty much at the ceiling for Ole Miss right now. I think that, again, the environmental factors of the rest of the SEC West just depress. Because you're not going to be the number one out there. You know what I mean? It's really a tough path forward to be that team. There's still going to be a little bit of talent acquisition and recruiting. You can get players there, but you have to work a little bit harder, I'll say. So that is something that comes into a factor. And it's just, I think that the potential to win more and bigger is more at Miami, even though we've not done it. But yeah, for those reasons, and it's in Oxford, Mississippi.
Okay, but I agree.
That's what I think.
Yeah, I agree. I was just basing the question knowing that you were going to deliver that answer, which I do agree with. But current status, current
year. Oh yeah, no, exactly. Yeah,
and I don't just mean this season. I mean relatively in the last 10 years or something like that. It's been comparable. So when I look at Lane Kiffin and Mario Cristobal, the reason I would most likely side with Cristobal, unless we went through the interview process and Lane Kiffin blew me away, would be not. It's a reasonable expectation that Lane Kiffin may not see this as the end-all be-all job that Mario Cristobal does, and that it's just another career move. And maybe he's looking at it as, hey, if things work out great and we win championships, I'll stay. But if we win championships or I enhance my resume and X, Y, and Z come calling, then I may be gone. Where based on Mario Cristobal's background, family roots, all of that, it seems like a destination job for him.
Fair.
That would be my only concern there. Also, Lane Kiffin, I've got to say, I'm impressed in talking to Ole Miss people that if you look at his last two recruiting classes, because I didn't know this to be true, but he, for most of his career, has come off as, and I'm talking about strictly as a football coach on the field and what was important to him as a guy that may, I don't know this for sure, but may have cared more about putting up yards and points than winning games and championships. But in looking at his last recruiting class and looking at the current Ole Miss recruiting class, it's something like 4 or 5 out of his top 6 players in both classes are defensive players, which show me that he wants to win and he's addressing that side of the ball.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, when you have the knowledge of self, say, okay, like I can recruit offense, I can get transfers on offense, I can develop the guys that we have here on offense, but we need to go and get different dudes for this roster for defense and going out and doing it. There's something to be said for that, you know, and, you know, you have not all, but a lot of eggs in the Arch Manning 2023 basket too, for them, which would be really interesting.
Yeah, and when you've got a guy like a Lane Kiffin, a guy that has that kind of reputation for play calling, scheming, developing quarterbacks, and we know how important the quarterback position is. Look at Clemson, and you have your probability of getting one of those kind of dudes in every recruiting class or enough recruiting classes in the future to keep some kind of chain of elite quarterbacks or very good quarterbacks on the roster. That's a huge plus.
Agreed.
When those guys know, hey, this is a guy that can get me to the league. John Bird, thank you so much for the super chat contribution. What can and I should expect from the Hurricanes? Seriously, what's going on? Everything needs to change immediately. Been a Canes fan forever. Keep up the great work, guys.
Well, thank you for that
question, but we appreciate the super chat.
Absolutely. And I mean, yeah, honestly, we should expect Miami to take football seriously, to take sports seriously. Because like John and myself and Hurricanes fans everywhere, we do. And it's not the passion that we have and the pursuit of excellence that we desire has not been matched by the administration or coaching staff or infrastructure at the University of Miami. So we can and should expect that they meet that at a minimum. And then you can take the results from there. But I mean, it's like, you know, it's been treated as an afterthought, and the performance has been that as well. So, yeah, I believe you can and should expect that the University of Miami Athletic Department take itself seriously, or as seriously as we do, which is apparently much more than them, and then move forward.
Anthony Manzano has posted this comment several times and kindly requested that we get to this question. Throwing Lincoln Riley into the fray. How possible is that?
I don't think it's possible, but I mean, if he is leaving Oklahoma and wants to sit down and talk about the coaching job at the University of Miami, hey, you know, I'm just checking my Outlook calendar, and I can calendar you for 2:00. Does that work for you? Because, I mean, hey, If you want to talk about that, we can talk about that. And then you talk about, developing quarterbacks to the league, multiple Heisman winners, number 1 overall picks, multiple, like I said, imagine him with the Tyler Van Dyke. Hello. Now, obviously, Charleston Rambo, it would behoove him to go to the NFL because he fell out of the rotation with Lincoln Riley as the coach. But, you've, seen pretty good recruiting, obviously, especially on the offensive side of the ball. You've seen really dynamic offenses. You've also seen really random, anemic performances overall from that team, too. Like games where it's like, it should be a comfortable 2-touchdown win, but then it's just like, oh, it's 17-13 Iowa State with 3 minutes left. And like, okay, like just ran, you know what I mean? After averaging, 47 points here and there, or, for the season. So that would be a little bit of a concern. But, oh, no, yeah, if he wants to leave Oklahoma and he has an honest desire for the University of Miami job and not like an NFL job or whatever, find the space in your calendar and talk to the man.
There are reports out there, I don't know how valid they are, that the money that he may be offered by LSU is just astronomical, like in the $11 or $12 million range.
And if I'm LSU, I do that.
We got Branson on the line. Branson, we appreciate you being here. Hey, Cam, what do you think are the chances Manny sneaks another year in if he wins out, including the bowl game? He should be done.
I don't think that there's a chance that he comes back. I don't. And seeing, things, D-Money over at Canes Insight said that both Blake James and Manny Diaz were done in the eyes of people who matter after the Michigan State game. What did I tell you? Same thing. That's when I was done, and, other people, Chris Stock from Inside the U, David Lake, who's really been at the forefront of the reporting on this, around recently, Barry Jackson from the Miami Herald, said similar things, but I don't see that there's a path forward with Manny Diaz here, with or without an AD. You know what I mean? I just don't. 19-15 with many terrible losses to this point of his tenure, including the FIU loss, which in and of itself is fireable. Like there's no reason. And they're 1 in whatever with 0 wins against Power 5 teams since that win is FIU. And every bit of futility that they've had since that day magnifies the level of fuckery that it is that we lost that game. Excuse my language, but man, I don't. You lose to a terrible Florida State team 2 weeks ago. You get embarrassed, just in so many different ways, at so many different times. And it's not even just like Alabama. You know what I mean? Because that's a game that is understandably outsized scoreline. But these other games where you let these teams hang around, even games that were wins, bro, there's no reason for these games to be. No, I don't see it. I don't. And maybe I'm crazy, but I'm not. I don't think that there's a chance that Manny comes back. And there's probably a good chance. I mean, if Miami is about really pushing forward the way that I hope and believe that they should be, then Manny Diaz shouldn't even make it to the bowl game, to be honest.
19-15 overall has to mean barely 500 in the conference, if that, barely 500, if that, against Power 5 opponents.
Yep.
That's pretty bad.
I mean, we went 300 and whatever days it was between Power 5 wins, from last year, what's the name? Last year, Duke, to this year, was it North Carolina State? Yeah, so December 5th to October 23rd, between wins against Power 5 teams. That's unacceptable. It's just, no. And like you have, what is he, 1-6, 1-5 after bye weeks. So you figure you have extra time to practice and game plan and prepare, and you can't deliver then. Obviously season openers, if you want to add those in, then that adds in more time where you're not necessarily performing well or great or things like that. I just don't see that there's a way forward. I honestly don't. The performance has not been there. And I mean, mean well though he might, it's just there's lots of nice people who lose their jobs for deficient performance. And I believe that should be what happens with Manny Diaz. Decent enough guy, means well. The performance has not been there. That means you got to go.
I'm sure there are all sorts of bowl destination possibilities. I'm pulling up one that is a return to the Sun Bowl, which was a 2014, 2015 game against Washington State at the Sun Bowl. They've got Miami against Oregon State. Does Brett McMurphy?
There's that one, but it's all of the lower tier ACC bowl game. So the bowl affiliations, as I click that, the one that is most interested, I believe, and this kind of takes a little calculus to make it happen. But if Florida beats Florida State in the bowl eligibility bowl this weekend between those teams, because both of those teams are 5-6, whoever wins goes to a bowl game, whoever doesn't goes home. If Florida wins that game, and it's important that it's Florida because they're a non-ACC team, but if Florida wins that game, there's plenty of chatter that the Gasparilla Bowl in Tampa wants Miami versus Florida on December 23rd at 7 p.m. on ESPN. They're pushing for that.
Yeah, they should be pushing for that. Yeah.
I mean, absolutely should be pushing for that. I just had a conversation with a good friend of mine about this today. And the thing that you guys need to always remember, even the college football playoff included in this, but bowl games are television shows, right? They're exhibitions, but it's a television show. They're trying to sell that advertising. They're trying to get people to watch. That's how they make their money. So they're trying to put the best 3.5-hour television show, movie, if you want to call it whatever. That's what they're trying to build. You're telling me, even though the teams aren't great, in the state of Florida, you get Miami versus Florida in a bowl game? Oh, the Gasparilla Bowl people, they all have to be Gators this weekend. Every single one. Because that's the bowl tie-in. And if they can get that at a relative discount with super, super premium name brand teams, because no, they're not college football playoff achievers this year. But Miami versus Florida, that's a name brand game. Remember, that was a week 0 game a couple years ago where we're going to be week 1. No, we're going to move that up a week. So there's no other game going on because of the magnitude of Miami versus Florida. If they went, that has to be the one that is really looking for Miami the most. And to be perfectly honest, yeah, that should be the game that you're all looking forward to. Because even though it's a, bottom tier, whatever, no one's really going to, have a great overall season record, even if you win that game or da-da-da-da. Miami versus Florida and Gasparilla Bowl in Tampa. Oh, that's a dream. That's a dream scenario for that bowl committee. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, if you run a lower tier bowl, those are the kind of angles you have to try to pull. You've got to look for big time programs that are having an off year, and then work an angle like two schools and fan bases that can't stand each other, that are playing in the same state, that have a history, and all the storylines.
You probably already have at least one new coach, if not two. So you got all of that, all those eyes. You got the interview time with that coach. Hey, be sure that you tune into the game. We're going to talk to Cristobal. We're going to talk to Billy Napier or whoever they hire. From the suite there at the stadium. I'm so glad to be here. They start their recruiting pitch. They start their outlook overview paradigm pitch to the households of everybody, because man, you're gonna have the kids watching that. You're gonna have their coaches watching that. You're gonna have come on. That's such a draw. And again, You're getting name brand teams at a discount for your television show that you're trying to schedule. Oh man, that's a dream come true. As opposed to like think in the scenario, right? A 7-5 Miami and a 6-6 Florida has to be infinitely more of a draw than a 7-5 Georgia Tech and a 6-6 Mississippi State for that bowl game. You know what I mean?
Or the projection that I'm looking at right here is Florida State, okay, Tulsa.
Because if Florida State wins that game, they go. But like, think of the difference between the two things we just said: Florida State, Tulsa, Miami, Florida, in that bowl game.
Yeah,
come on, like, it speaks for itself. So that's it. And there are other bowl games that are out there. There is the Sun Bowl. There's the what else? The Military Bowl. That's ACC versus American. The Birmingham Bowl. The Serve Pro First Responder Bowl. The Holiday Bowl. I don't know if we would get that one, but that's that.
That's an ACC game?
ACC really? Pac-12 is what I'm seeing. December 28th from the ACC website.
Switch that up.
Yeah. The Wasabi Fenway Bowl, nice and spicy. The New Era Pinstripe Bowl, which we've been into. But I don't think that like these games that are getting later towards New Year's, I don't really think that Miami's going to get placed in any of those. So, and it's funny because while you're looking at the timeline and the listing, or as I'm looking at it on this other tab, the Gasparilla Bowl is the bottom bowl. It is the first one. It is at the bottom of the pecking order, all those things. So again, if you can get that bowl, which would never in a million years think that you can get a matchup like that.
Yeah.
And get Miami versus Florida in their game in the state of Florida. Oh man, that's a dream beyond a dream for them. And I'm not going to say that I'm actually rooting for Florida because like that's against my religion, but that is something that's out there. But there is also the Sun Bowl in El Paso, Texas, one of the worst places I've ever been in my life, and I'm not going back there. So I will watch it from home or somebody's house or whatever, but I'm not going to that game. So
yeah, I'm checking out the proposed bowl matchups here, and I'm just a college football nerd because especially once it gets into the Power 5, you can throw me any Power 5 matchup, and I find it intriguing if those teams don't normally play. All right. Anything else in here, folks? Game coming up against Duke.
Yeah.
Anything there?
We should beat them, and we should beat them bad.
Yeah.
The line.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
So this is rivalry week in college football. There are amazing matchups, both from a pride, bragging rights, traditional rivalry standpoint, or in the case of Oklahoma State, Ohio State, Michigan. There's a few that have all that, plus they have monumental national implications.
Mm-hmm.
Miami's got Florida State, of course, but it's played at a different time of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Do you care that Miami does not play somebody of a level of magnitude and just doesn't happen on rivalry week while all these other enormous matchups are going on?
No, because Miami makes the matchup. Miami and Florida State, even though it's not the last game of the year, is a destination game. And yeah, the programs have fallen off, but for 20, 30 years, that's destination television, no matter where you are in the country. Before the proliferation of cable, it's on every local affiliate. They're dialing in, they're buying in and saying, hey, we got to show this because it is that game. Would it be nice to have an end of the year kind of a thing? Obviously, from Detroit, grew up as a Michigan fan. You have the game at the end of the year, every single year. Whatever the schedule is going to be, O State at the end. You already know. You know what I mean? It's a different kind of a thing. So as a traditionalist to some degree, would I like to have that? Yeah. Is it really a deal breaker that Miami doesn't? No, not really. And I'm good with like the every couple of years rotating who's the last game. for Miami, because it feels, since Miami does not have that natural historical last week of the season opponent, any move to try to make anybody into that is forced. Like, who is it? The UCF Connecticut, the civil conflict thing where they're making up the trope. That's just so contrived.
Yes.
And for me, like, they put Pittsburgh at the end of the year a couple seasons in a row to try to make that into, and I'm just like, they're Pittsburgh. They're not that. And I mean, like, and Pittsburgh is an ACC foe, and they've been a Big East opponent, and like, we play them every year, and like, there's nothing wrong with Pittsburgh at all. And they beat Miami, and we beat them, and all those kind of things. But they're not destination game end of the season opponent for Miami, and we're not for them either, and that's okay. But don't try to create that in 2020 something, or 20, like in the mid-late 20 teens. All of a sudden trying to say, oh, well, we're going to make Miami, Pittsburgh. No. That's a thing that would have been done long ago, like so many of these other games. But I mean, yeah, it's a footnote, but it's not a deal breaker.
And that's done all over the place. Currently in the SEC, you've got a situation where Arkansas joined the SEC in 1992. So they pinned them with LSU to make that a rivalry on Thanksgiving weekend, and they would play on Friday, and it was Arkansas LSU. And it became a rivalry. They had really good teams most of those times, and they put together some kind of trophy, and they're obviously adjoining states and so forth and so on. But then Texas A&M and Mizzou joined the SEC, and they switched it up thinking, well, we need to integrate them. And instead of putting together Texas A&M and Mizzou, as you would think they would be the natural rivals coming from another conference where they already had a series, they now have Arkansas play Missouri and have Texas A&M play LSU on the final weekend of the season every year. The Big Ten, Maryland and Rutgers join, and they want to put together those two, and they have them play every year at the end of the year. And yeah, it's somewhat contrived.
I mean, it's easier for those two because this is like, hey, the Eastern Seaboard
they're regional
of the Big Ten.
It makes sense.
But yeah, for the most part, those things have already been set. There's always going to be realignment, so there's going to be some of those things. But even, you have the intra-division or intra-conference, like Florida State, obviously is the marquee game for both those teams at the end of the year and things like that. So, I mean, yeah, again, it's a footnote, not a deal breaker. It would have been nice if we had that, but again, the University of Miami brand brings it out. We are the show, and whoever we play. So hopefully we're going to get back with a new AD and a new head coach in the near future to continue to be the brand. And then whatever game we play, whatever week we play, is the destination game, regardless.
Great stuff, Cam. Thank you so much for everything. Happy Thanksgiving. Have a great weekend. Finish 7-5, and then we will find out where the bowl destination is a week later.
Absolutely. But again, yeah, thanks for everything, my friend. I appreciate it. Thank you to everybody watching and listening and supporting. Go check out stateoftheu.com. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at the State of the U. My personal Twitter account is at Underwood Sports. And enjoy the time with your families. And we'll check in with you guys next week.